I'm Valerie Covey, County Commissioner, Precinct 3. You have the flipper?
Oh, yes.
Clicker, thank you. I'm glad to be a part of this. I just got through speaking to a chamber group, their breakfast links, and so she's going to hook up the presentation because I think it would be interesting to see a few things that we're working on in your area. Do y'all, how many of you live in Georgetown? Okay, but all of you live in Williamson County? Is that right? Cedar Park? Do we have Cedar Park here? Leander? Okay, Liberty Hill? Okay, Gerald? Did I cover everybody? Okay, and then the east side? Okay, Taylor, Hutto, all those. Wahlberg, oh, east side, close east side. Wahlberg, Weir, okay, great. And Round Rock, okay, perfect. Well, good. So, and I see some familiar faces that come to court and talk to us. So you heard this presentation about the budget, so we can talk about that, and I don't know if y'all are asking questions, but I'm happy to take questions. So I'm a CPA, that's my background, and that helps a lot with what we do, because one of the main things that we do is the budget, and we set the tax rate, not the appraisal value of your property, but it's just math after that, okay? And so we have done several things over the time I've been in office, which is November of '06, to reduce your taxes. And that is with exemptions and other things, as well as just trying to lower the tax rate. And as the property values have increased, we've been able to do that some. But it's also because of our growth, you know, back in 2000 really, and 2010, we were like at 250,000 people. Then the next census was 425, and then it was over 600. Now we're over 700,000 people in the county. So it is extreme fast rate of growth, not just the fact that we've grown. And so we try to balance everything, and you've heard a little bit about the budget. Our budget process really starts in the beginning of the year, like January, February timeframe, calendar year. Our actual year starts October 1. But the process is extensive. And so you heard we're over the population that we have to have a budget officer. So that is one thing that we have, and then the court decides and moves money around and all that kind of stuff. But we do a lot of other things. And so I want to visit with you about a couple of those, and let's see if I can make this work here. Where do I point it? The bottom button, okay. Thank you, okay. Well, that's counterintuitive, but I can make that work. So the county's broken into 4 precincts, okay? And so my precinct is the middle one that's highlighted there, Precinct 3. It goes from Bell and Burnett counties all the way down south of SH 45. So it has most all of Georgetown, all of Brushy Creek, Fern Bluff, some of Avery Ranch, all of Florence, and some of Gerald, a lot of Gerald ISD. So we work together with all those entities. We own a lot of property downtown, and that may be something that interests you. What is the county going to do with all their property? And we have, and it's hard to show you, but at the top right, you'll see a square there, and it's got a few buildings that no longer exist because we knocked them down. But that's where our historic jail is. And we're going to keep the castle, I call it. That's a good thing. And we're going to soon market that, as well as we own 3 of the lots across Main Street. You know where 309 Coffee is? We don't own that, but we own the house to the south of it, and we own the empty lot and the other house that's to the north of it on that. So 3/4 of half a block, I call it. So that is, you're going to see a process that we're going to move forward on, and that is to get RFPs, to get interest in what projects might be available for that property, and we are going to market that. And I don't know what you've heard already, so I don't want to duplicate all the discussion, but obviously if you move straight south, straight down that page, that's the historic courthouse. In about a year-ish, we're going to move all the components that are in that building out to this campus on the corner, and you can see that building. If you look to the east, you'll see that building when you leave. That is going to be our new headquarters. where we hold Commissioner's Court, where the judge moves, the auditor is here, where her office moves, and other things that we're going to move out there. And I won't list them all, but there's several departments. That will free up the courthouse. Right across the street, there's a little tiny red sliver. That's where the museum is. The county owns that building. What I'd like to do, and again, I'm telling you Val Covey's plan. I got to get 2 more votes to do anything. But what we're going to be presenting in the near future is what to do with that. And I think that once the people move out of the courthouse, it would be a great fit to move the museum into the courthouse. Because right now, it's a very small building, not very many opportunities for displays, and they have to rotate them. We could do a lot better displays and a lot longer if we move them in. But I also think that it would be a good fit to move the city's visitor center in there. And that's another building that's on the north side of the square, as you know. And again, those 2 properties could go back on the tax rolls, and both of those 2 opportunities fit in the building. We're going to be making that presentation soon to get the court to move forward on it. The building to the south of that is the tax office, and that will also, those functions and some of the audit staff, and those will all move out to this building out here. To the new headquarters, and so we're going to determine what we do for an interim. The other larger red buildings and all of the colored area is county-owned land. So really from 3rd Street to 8th Street, where the library is, and 2 blocks wide, Rock to MLK, that's all county-owned property that's colored there. And so we have, the only thing the court has voted on is to move the jail and justice center out of downtown. Now, the where and the when have not been determined, but we're working on a plan with the city of Georgetown because we have to remain in the city because it is our county seat. And so we're gonna be discussing that property and what to do with it. But for the next, when we move everybody out here, the functions, the basement is emptied out because Nancy Reister, the county clerk's operations, her death and birth records, the property deeds all come out here. So that gives us some flexibility, some room, because we're out of room in the Justice Center. So we're going to be moving people around there. Then we'll determine if we're going to use the tax office for some of the sheriff's functions, or we're going to put that back on the tax roll too. So that's, yes, ma'am.
So for the building, I guess the property that you had kind of over by, I think you said by 309.
Yes.
You said that y'all would be doing RFPs for kind of how to market that. Is that for, you know, community use or, you know, some sort of program, or is that open to?
It would be for economic development. It would be,
so
it would be something
see, like,
back
hey,
on the tax rolls.
What is somebody going to do with this before?
100%.
Okay.
So it can't be a chicken place, a mattress store, or a bank. That's what I've said. Okay. I think we have enough of those.
You want to know that it's what it's going to.
Yeah, I mean, for example.
So you don't get like a switcheroo or something.
Exactly. Well, it would be part of the scope of our RFP, our request for proposals, that would say it's got to meet these criteria. In other words, not residential. It would be certain things or not certain things. And then we'll see what the opportunities come in. And then we'll make that determination. But yeah, that's kind of the thought there. And those 3 properties on the other side, right now 309 is leasing 2 of those spaces from us, the parking lot and the building to the north. And so we would honor that, but it possibly could be for parking or for something else I'm throwing out ideas like a boutique hotel. You know, we don't have a hotel downtown. I think that would be kind of a cool thing to have, but it's got to it's got to pencil up if it works. Now, I don't know that that'll be what will be there. We'll just see what the opportunities are. Okay, I'm going to keep going because I only have a few minutes. Pictures of our castle, pictures of our other buildings. This is what our headquarters is going to look like out here. It will be three stories. Road projects, and this was for a previous conversation, but I will tell you this, a lot of conversation has happened around tolling and Reagan. So let me just give you a little very quick scenario of this. We are currently planning and actually building 2 more lanes on Ronald Reagan from really 29 to 3405, okay? Where Santa Rita is and all those homes that have been dropped in there. That will give us 2 sets of frontage roads, just like it is south of there, okay? We're designing and will soon build, next year starting building from north of that, and actually it curves to the east, all the way to 195. That's my project right now, trying to get that in play. Because what I want to do is have the frontage road set so it's one directional traffic on each one. It's just a lot safer. And with all the neighborhoods that are coming in there, it'll be needed. But the goal is to have main lanes one day. The project that you've been hearing about, if you've heard about tolling, is really from 1431 to 29. And it would be for the middle lanes, and there'll be probably like 2 each direction. How do we pay for that? The estimated cost is about $500 million. Just to put that in perspective, our road bond projects in 23's road bond that the voters voted for was $825 million for roads. But that's like 30 projects. Okay, if one project cost $500 million, we're just not going to be able to do that. And so the concept is, if the RMA, the Regional Mobility Authority, says that it's a good business decision to do that, then they might put those lanes in and pay for them with their own bonds, not on our bonds, and the user would pay for those roads. But the frontage roads that we're building would continue to be non-tolled, okay? We built them with our tax dollars, and they would continue to be non-tolled, okay? But if the RMA says, yes, we can do these roads, they're gonna also take over the maintenance of those lanes that we put in, which is awesome for us we taxpayers, because it's becoming very, very difficult to get all of it resurfaced and maintained on a timely basis, because we're adding so many lane miles, okay? So it's a business decision for them. It's not political. Will it be enough ridership to pay the bonds back and to be able to pay for the maintenance going forward? Okay, so there you go. That's the skinny on that. Okay, these are some other, that's the pictures of Reagan. At 195 in Ronald Reagan, there is one ramp that we're going to put in, and we're going to start building that soon. And the reason why it wasn't put in is because the land just to the north was a big hole in the ground as a quarry, and we didn't feel like it was a good idea to put that in there. But the next picture shows the other 3 ramps that we're planning right now to make that whole intersection work better, okay, and be safer. There's a lot of other road projects I can talk about, and if you have those questions, I'm happy. But I do want to mention behavioral health. This is another aspect of what we do. And I've been on the Behavioral Health Task Force since I took office in November of '06. I mentioned our growth and our rapid growth. You would think that our jail, which in most counties is the mental health hospital, because there's not capacity and the state has not added capacity since I've been in office, you would think that our population, our jail, would exponentially grow. It has been higher in the past than it is now. And the reason is because of a lot of things that we've done, and I call them gap fillers. Things that we can do locally to help address the situation. Now, I'm not saying people don't need to be in our jail. 100% there's some folks that need to be incarcerated. However, not everybody that has a behavioral health issue needs to be in our jail or in the emergency room after they're medically cleared. Both of those are the 2 most expensive and non-transforming locations. So I don't want that to happen. So we've added a diversion center, so law enforcement can drop off someone there. They're in a safe place while we find the next right thing for them. Our youth respite has been tremendous. In fact, one of the projects I work on is CPS, our Child Protective Services, which is slightly broken. A year ago, we had 21 spots and we had 4 filled. You can imagine the problem that we have with our youth, our adolescents that are just not able, the caseworkers just weren't able to handle the load. We have about 200 of them here in our county, 200 adolescents. So we worked with Bluebonnet Trails and gave them money, and they renovated their executive suite to make a 16-bed youth respite. So our kids with behavioral health issues, and I would argue that probably most kids that are going through CPS issues might have some discussion that need to happen and some help. They're able to stay there in a safe place, and I went down there last week. It's just a phenomenal situation. But they also, it's not just a bed and some food, they're actually getting therapy, and lives are changing. And we're bringing the parents into it so that we don't just put the child back into a situation that's not conducive to good health. So that we've had our adult respite in place for over 15 years, and it's worked phenomenally. Our jail-based competency restoration program is super good. I love it. Because, again, no capacity, additional capacity at the state, we had people staying 2 and 3 years in our jail that were deemed incompetent. And by the way, when that happens, when a doctor says you are incompetent, everything stops. You don't talk to your lawyer even. So you can imagine that they weren't getting healthier in that scenario. And it's the most expensive person in our jail. So what we did was we just started our own program. So we said, we're going to use this pod if you qualify, and through Bluebonnet Trails, our local mental health authority, working with the state, we got the clinical stuff paid for, and we are changing lives. That 2 and 3 years is down to 37 to 40 days. And then our whole team, the attorneys, the clerks, and our judges work to get those folks through the pipeline to the next right thing for them. So I'm loving that program, and I think it should be mirrored around the state. We're going to continue to work with the state and Bluebonnet Trails to address issues. Animal shelter, that's another thing I do. I'm the president of the regional animal shelter. So right here on campus, before you leave, just go get an animal, please, because we have a lot of them. We are a no-kill shelter. That means that we don't kill for space, which means we only euthanize for behavior if they're not adoptable, and they have to be pretty aggressive for that. And so, because we work with them, trying to train them to be adoptable. Our regional shelter is a combination of Round Rock, Cedar Park, Leander, Hutto, and the county. And we are now working on bringing Georgetown in. They had their own shelter, that's why they didn't go originally with us, but they want to be in now. We'll be adding capacity, and Georgetown has passed the bonds to do that. So I'm excited about that opportunity. Okay, that's probably way past my time. What questions do you have? Because I do a whole lot of other things. I'm on the audit committee, the investment committee, because my background, and I'm the president of the Williamson County Conservation Foundation, which is the Bugs and Birds, okay? Which I've learned a whole bunch about the Endangered Species Act. I've actually read it several times. It's riveting. And we have put together, we've gotten a permit to be able to help development move forward at the same time take care of the endangered or threatened species, which I think is a great solution for both. We're actually adding chapters to add salamanders for that, and several other species that are now deemed endangered. All right, questions? Yes, sir.
As the county grows and every precinct is run as well, when you get ready to do something in your research, do you do the majority of it, or do you have staff, or do you have county staff to help you with putting it all together? Sure,
it depends on what it is. So first of all, I have two staff in my office, and they're phenomenal. They do a lot of work and helping me stay on track. But we have great county workers, county employees that do a tremendous amount. So we have purchasing, you're going to hear from audit, and all these different departments that help keep us on the right path. But for example, roads, we have folks that look at plats and do more of the smaller county roads internally, but we also hire engineers. And in fact, we have an engineering firm that oversees our whole bond program because it's so massive. And then we hire individual engineers to do the specific road projects that we have. So we do it both ways. But our county employees are tremendous. And really, a lot of the decision is every time we add a person to our role, it exponentially grows in cost. So we really have to look at, does it make sense to hire more employees or to hire out? And that's really a conversation we have every budget cycle. Okay, who else? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question on the budget because I think now this is our 4th week, is that right? We're 4 weeks in.
Yes.
This is the 4th week of your
last week we were at the sheriff's office and the jail and all that kind of stuff.
And they let you out. That's
They did.
good. I always am thankful for that when I go over there.
But they talked about, and kind of you've talked about the growth, and I think everybody's heard about the growth that we have going on. So I guess in that, as y'all are coming up with, going through the budget cycle and everything like that, is that something that we're going to see more deputies and more officers and that kind of stuff? Because I know we talked about the different MUDs and all the different growth in some of those
Right.
areas.
Right.
So are we going to have more deputies to police those areas?
So a couple things to say about that. One, we are seeing a lot more growth outside of city limits, so it would fall under the sheriff. A lot of the municipal utility districts or MUDs hire off-duty officers to do extra work, and we've seen that a lot. And that's up to them if they want to do that. They pay the officer directly, the deputy directly. But as far as the budget goes, as you heard, it funnels through the budget office, and they look at the 100+ requests and try to pare it down to what we actually need each year. And sometimes we add some, but we can't add everything that they request. And that's every department. They might add stuff. It really, it depends on what we're after. Because, for example, and I'll just say that do we need to add more more folks that work in the jail if our numbers are down? Right. And so we're going to look at the numbers. And I'm a big proponent, as a CPO, you'd think I would be, of looking at the request and then putting some facts together to see if it makes sense. What's our response time for patrol? But we're also county, we're not city. So what should our expectations be? If you live out in the county, your expectation of a fire truck, an ambulance, or a law enforcement showing up is probably a greater length of time than if you live in a city that's a lot closer to that. And so we try to balance that. But the request that we have every year is way more than we can afford, or we're going to be raising your taxes. And so we try to balance it. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I just have a question with that. You mentioned development and the ETJs are the big things with the cities, and some cities allow mud, some don't. So how do you prepare budget for the properties that opt out of ETJs, or do you just kind of have to do that kind of at the end?
Yeah, that's really hard to plan when it's so easy now for a developer or landowner to opt out of a city's ETJ. So typically when somebody comes in and wants to develop their property, the first question is, where are you and what jurisdiction are you in? And if you're in the city's ETJ even, they usually review the plat, especially for a large city like Georgetown, for example. However, we do the maintenance and the law enforcement if it's not in the city limits, even if it's in the ETJ. Now, if they're getting out of the ETJ, it's all county. So you asked about hiring out or not. That's something that we need to look at as far as our platting department, because we have a 30-day shot clock we have to be through with the review process. Now, it can start over if there's questions and things, so it does take a little bit longer than 30 days, but it's a fast pace. And if we're gonna have that many more plats coming through us instead of the city, what are we going to do with that? Are we going to hire out? Or are we going to hire more employees? When we hire more employees, by the way, we have to start building buildings. So there's a lot of cost that goes with it that we need to consider, and it's a complicated discussion, and depends on what the area is if we're going to do that. There's some things that we need to do ourselves. Obviously, we're not going to hire, although we hire outside auditors, we're not going to hire out. The audit staff has a job. Our purchasing department keeps us legal in all things purchasing. But there are some aspects to what we do that we could hire out. Did somebody else have a question over here? Yes, ma'am.
Actually, I had two, and they're not related, I don't think. One is, how is the Regional Mobility Authority funded?
Sure. Is that your first question?
That's the first question.
Okay, that's good. Thanks for not giving me both, so I have to remember. But no, I'm just kidding. The RMA was set up by the state, and there are regional mobility authorities throughout the state. So there's like one in Dallas, and they take care of the toll roads up there. And so there's a region that they can cover and that they can build roads. So like 290 down in Austin, 183 now, so you can zip from 35 to the airport. 183A, those are roads built by our Central Texas RMA, Regional Mobility Authority, our CTRMA. Those are roads that they have a jurisdiction over and can do that. But they're funded primarily with the bonds that they sell to do the projects. That's how those projects are funded. And I believe there's some state money in there also that might be to help with administration. But they are funded through the bonds that they sell to build the roads. So just like we would build, like we're building Reagan with bonds that we sold that voters approved. They do it with, and their board approves it. They're set up with the board, and like we have there's different taxing entities that put people on that board. Does that make sense?
They're their own taxing entity.
They are. They're a separate organization, they're separate from the county. So if they take out debt for a road project, that does not go on our tab. That's just them.
But it has to show up on our taxes somewhere.
Not from our property taxes, no ma'am, that we will not. So for example, if they're building a road that we don't pay their bonds back, so it's not part of our debt. Okay, what was your second question?
The second question had to do with the various committees that seem to be citizen committees and maybe part of your conservation committee. How can everyday citizens
Yeah, that's a great question. Cities have more committees than counties do that they bring in citizens to serve. However, we do appoint emergency service districts, and I don't know if y'all talked about that yet, but if you live outside of a city limits, you might be covered by an emergency service district, and that ESD, we call them. And we have quite a few in our county. I have a lot in my precinct. And so we appoint the commissioners, the county judge, the commissioners court appoints the members to that organization. They are set up to, again, collect taxes on their own, and they provide the first responder services. So they can contract or they can hire folks to do that, fire guys. Now, except for Georgetown, the county runs the ambulance service for Williamson County. It's a regional program that we have as part of our budget. But ESDs are one of the things. Another thing, the committees that I serve on, did you have a question about that?
I just thought that we have the volunteer departments in part of the county.
Some counties, some parts do, but if you have an emergency service district, so the voters in this territory that they have set, this is going to be ESD 7, for example, goes around Florence. It goes all the way down to Reagan. It's very vast. It butts up to Gerald's emergency service district. And that area is taxed. And the property tax goes up to 10 cents per 100, but they also have passed, in that ESD and some others, have passed a sales tax. So if a city does not have a fire department, Hutto doesn't have a fire department, if you can believe that, as big as they are. So they have an emergency service district. Gerald, Florence, they don't have fire departments. So they had a volunteer fire department, but the volunteer fire department in Gerald, for example, wasn't raising enough funds from their fundraisers, so they wanted an emergency service district because it brings in a lot more revenue. And now they have that set up. They started with volunteers, now they have paid firemen, and so does Florence. Does that help with that?
Yeah, we have Weir and Bartlett kind of.
Yeah, and Bartlett's half in Williamson and half in Bell, so that's complicated. Brushy Creek has, yes, Brushy Creek has 2, and that's in my precinct, also 9. And Brushy Creek actually, Sam Bass Fire actually helps in ESD 9, so it's kind of interesting.
But there's other committees, so is there any?
Yeah, so the animal shelter is actually, I'm the president, but it's all the entities. They put somebody on that committee. And typically they're a staff person, various staff people from each of those entities. The audit committee, we have folks that we put on that are financially minded. We have CEOs, CFOs, and different things like that. Investment committee is internal. Our habitat, if you want to learn about bugs and birds, hey, we've put citizens on that because it's important because it impacts so much of the county. It started with the west side of 35 because that's where our caves are, because that's where the aquifer is really that we're talking about. And then the bird habitat, because the east side didn't have as many trees. And I'm talking far east. I'm not talking just in Georgetown. We have citizens serving on that. So I can get back to you if you're interested in serving on something. If you're on the east side, your Commissioner Russ Bowles, would be somebody that you might want to talk to also. Okay, what else? I think Connie's going to give me the hook.
Yeah.
If you have any questions, my number was up there. I'm happy. My office is in this building just down the hall where the 2 flags are, so you can stop by and get a card if you're interested. I'm happy to answer any questions or work with you on any situation that you might have, especially if it's not in the city limits, but I can help you otherwise too, maybe. Thank you for doing this class. I think this is really great. Most people don't know what we do, and they don't understand local government, but we impact your life every day with decisions that we make. And our long-range transportation plan is not scary. I think it's a good thing to do. It's just a lot of lines on a map. There are lines there for planning purposes, and if nobody sells their property, we won't need any more roads. But if they happen to keep seeing zeros on a check, they tend to sell, and then we need some more roads. But we need to plan. George, I'll just leave you with this. Austin had a plan, and they didn't implement it because the implementation is the hard part. Sitting across from a landowner and saying, I'm really sorry, but I'm going to have to put a road through your property. I'm going to impact you somehow. Help me figure it out to where it doesn't hurt you as much. That's the hardest conversation I have. But I think it's prudent to the growth that we have and being able to get around. Who got stuck on 35 yesterday, you know, or had to try to find another way around? We need options, and that's what we're about, is having options. So Williamson County continues to be a great place to live. So thank you for letting me join you today. Take care.